Man, I hated that deck. King Piccolo is back here with Zenkai Series 8. We have a brand new King Piccolo leader in red, which is what all of the people had been asking for, because they forgot how dominant the last one was, and they're just a bunch of Neanderthals with 3 shared brain cells. The deck was cool, but it was really strong. Let's see if this one can actually keep up. So right off the bat, the leader, not stellar, right? I think that if we look at this the way that I would compare it, right, we can just outright read it, and then we'll talk about what it really does. So just with the start of the game, you're going to place as many eggs underneath. I imagine somewhere between like 5 and 7 eggs is going to probably be right, because you really just want to make sure that you have the one or two Z extras for explosive dance, and then you have like a rush attack Vegeta, so that way you can pressure at the end of the game. Activate main for a red, you can add up to 2 Dragon Balls from your deck or life to your hand, and then play up to 1 of the eggs from under the leader. What this reads to me is that you don't have to include cantrips in the deck, even if you want to. The deck immediately does save on that deck space by going, hey, you know what, just pay 1, draw 2, is kind of how it's going to work, which is the same total advantage as activating a cantrip from your hand, except now it's no longer vulnerable on board. When there are 7 or more Dragon Balls in your drop, or I guess not 7 or more, just 7 Dragon Balls in your drop, you draw a card, flip over. No untap is a little rough, especially since you are paying the 1 every turn to even be able to potentially draw, rather than getting a full curve. So I do think there's going to be a lot of times where you're going to have to stifle or decide not to play a card because your opponent's going to be pressuring you. I think this deck is going to be pretty weak to aggro. On the backside, we have an activate main, draw 1, and then activate an egg. Great, so that means when we awaken, we get an additional draw, as well as then we activate a second egg. Then if we have a red Z Unison with specified cost of 1 in play, and we get rid of those Dragon Balls out of our drop area, we add a life from the top of our deck. So really, you're looking at one of the first like true 9 life leaders in the game, which I think is really strong. There are a couple that have had Rejuvenate like actually work before, but this leader straight up does just gain a life, assuming that you have one of the specified Unisons out. So speaking of them, we're going to look at the idiots here. So on the left there, we have Reich Pilaf. Oh my god, is that a Dane Reich reference? Cue the SpongeBob meme. Activate main. It's just a +1. You get to place a Demon Clan underneath one of the eggs that's currently in there from your Z energy, and then play one of them that's already under there. So what this is going to do, basically, this says +1 to play out an additional body from your Z energy. Obviously, it's technically swapping them. Like, it's super solid that you can, like, choose which one. It gives you more versatility in the egg choice that you're making, right, of what you want to play underneath, because maybe during your turn, your opponent then goes for some sort of different play, and hey, now I want to get a minus effect off, right? Maybe they played a blocker token or something. Shoom, shoom. Put a drum underneath either one of the drums, and then play it, and I think that's really solid. If your leader's a red KP, then for a -3, you can basically go play out the Piccolo Jr. Unison from the previous deck from your deck. There we go. And you know what? That's fine. I don't think it's probably going to see a lot of play. You might play it in the deck just in case you get there. But as a 1/1 5k Unison, chances are this guy's going to die pretty easily, right? Any sort of Unison removal would immediately take care of it. And some cantrips can even attack this thing. So I don't expect it to stick around long. But the fact is that it's basically a 1/1 for you to be able to play out a different card from underneath an egg, and it can be really useful, right? 1/1 to play a card from an on-hand area is pretty good. The Pilaf World Conquer support, this card's fine. On play, add a Dragon Ball, and then when you play one of the big boss monsters, it gains critical for the turn, but only if this Pilaf's out, which I think that's kind of the hard part. And then you also have to have 7 Dragon Balls in your drop area, and then get rid of this card. So you have to not have regent, and you have to keep this card out long enough to the point where you would then play that card. Is that worth critical? Probably not. It's very notable that the leader doesn't have to attack on the front or backside to gain advantage, and I think that's really useful, but it is something where we aren't going to want to stall our opponent for that long, because we still are red, you know? This is kind of the main engine, the King Spawn. We're looking at the Terror Egg. Terror is born, so as many as you want in the deck. It's unaffected by your opponent's skills, can't attack. And then when it's played, you'll place 1 underneath. Start of your main phase, you play 1 from underneath as well. So basically, it's a full turn cycle. You'll pay 1 for your leader, or activate main on the backside, play the egg out, and then stick one underneath. At the start of your next turn, you'll get to play one. Or you use the right peel-off, and that'll allow you to play one immediately. So these are all of our options. I'm not going to sit here and read every single one, but there are a couple Dragon Ball finders there. We have removal with drum as well as potential blocks. We have small removal as well as draw with symbol, which I think is probably one of the better ones, alongside tambourine, who can basically be a dual attacker that builds 2 Z energy. And I think that's going to be really good, right? Paying 1 to then make 2 Z energy and be 2 20k attacks, minus 15 a card. I think that's probably good. I want to say that piano is playable, but really discarding a card to play out one from your drop area is not great. I think in reality it's cool that potentially it could like reborn the limited drum, or if you were to set up yourself in a spot where, hey, you know what, maybe I have the ability to play a tambourine, Terror is Born from there. Sure. And then finally, Piccolo Jr. This is one of the best cards, just because when a KP is removed, you do immediately get to go, hey, look at this card, play out one of the eggs from under your leader, place it under there, and then at the start of your turn, you're going to get to play it again. So it does turbo out an additional body just for the fact that your opponent removed a card, and it's a 20k crit, so it's not an irrelevant body. The King himself. These cards are all actually really good. I think these cards are pretty solid. The SR especially is really strong, so we're going to start with him. For 2 red, if your leader's red and you have 3 or more energy, you play him. Great. He has Deflect, 20k 3 cost, so not terribly hard to remove, but not, like, accidental, right? He's not a cantrip. When he's played, you draw 1, and you get to play a Namekian or Demon Clan, an energy cost of 3 from your deck. So I want to note that this can also play out other King Piccolos, specifically on the right, or himself. You wouldn't necessarily want to play himself out because his effect is limit 1, but especially the cards on the right, I think is totally super fine. So you can also just real quick activate main, place a Namekian or Demon Clan in the drop for minus 15. I feel like this effect should really be minus 20, minus 15, remove stuffs, and potentially take some marker off of Unison, but it doesn't remove, like, the main power level that we're looking for on battle cards these days. But more importantly, let's just pop over to Birthing Evil, because I think this is going to be your main target when you're playing King Piccolo most of the time. When it's played, you get the top 5 for a red King Piccolo or Demon Clan card, and then it gets plus 5. So it immediately goes, hey, you know what? This is a 2 energy for a draw 1, 20k, that plays a 25 that draws another card, right? So pay 2, draw 2, produce 2 bodies. That's pretty good. I would, like, really, that's just about as good as it gets. Birthing Evil can also play itself just for 2 reds outright and making a Z energy, which is honestly not bad. The fact that it adds itself it adds a card to the Z energy and then pluses itself for the turn does mean that instead of having to, like, when this card attacks, then combo with a card, does mean that you can actually build 2 Z energy with his play, because he'll build 1 from his effect, and then he could swing and combo another one, and that's pretty good. Though, most of the time, I think you're going to evolve 1 or both of these cards, especially Birthing Evil, over to Restored and Ultimate Evil Power. This is the main card that the Peel-Off combos with. You just EX Evolve on top of either 3-cost King Piccolo for free. Double Strike, when it attacked, you combo with a mono red card with its skills negated, and then you give minus 25 to one of your opponent's battle cards. Between that and the minus 15 of the Demon Clan Convened, you can kill a 40k, which is pretty good. It's not crazy, but it is definitely something to do, and 30k Double Strike is not a laughing matter, right? Very solid stuff. Or 35k combos, 35k Double Strike if you're evolving on Birthing Evil, because that 5k would carry over. The extra cards, a suggestion for the Reich Peel-Off. Again, that's me. Anyway, so Dragon Ball, top 3 for a Demon Clan or Namekian 6 or less. Place the rest of the bottom of the deck in any order. I think this is a good card. To me, the fact that this is just like a, hey, quick search out a better card. Like, you could play the Black Dragon Balls, but because this is red, it gives you a couple different opportunities to, like, search for super combos and make sure that you have the consistency pieces that you want, right? Just having any card that you specifically need. I think this is definitely just the Dragon Ball to play. You could play some of the, you know, just a free cycle Dragon Ball or whatever, but in comparison to top 3 for any card in the deck, there's probably not going to be so many red non-King Piccolo, Namekian, Demon Clan cards that you're likely to whiff. The card on the right is a little bit worse. Just pay 1. You choose a red KP that's already out with energy cost of 3 or 6, and then you KO everything with less than or equal to power. Like, it can be a board wipe. Don't get me wrong. But I don't think red has a lot of trouble with removal, especially this is KO rather than minus power. Really, to me, this could maybe be a one-of just to go alongside like your big free guy, because he's just like a 30k and you can board wipe from there. But that still means that you spent 3 energy producing that 1 attack and then blowing up their board. I don't know that that's going to be worth it in red, especially if you have to pay 1 on the front side of your leader for quite some time. We'll see how it works out, but my guess is that this card is probably not going to see play. Maybe it's a one-of if your opponent's going really wide. Some old cantrips. They're not all technically cantrips. The one on the right is a Self-Awakener, but these are the cards that you could play if you really just wanted other cantrips. I don't think there's a reason to. Your leader searches out the Dragon Balls, which then search out the cantrips for you, but I thought I'd put them here and include them. These cards, though, are important. The searchable super combos. We have a set 8 Dependable Warrior Piccolo. These foils were like $15 when the original King Piccolo deck was in full force, and honestly, it's a really good looking card. It was before they went to the full art foils, so they still had the full silvers. It was very, very clean. If you want to go for something a little more modern and much, much cheaper, you can look at the Piccolo Opposing Strength from the Garlic Jr. Sagas. That was, what, set 21, I believe. That card's a little less pretty, but it is still good. And then the brand new guy, Piccolo Jr. Terror is Born. This is part of that new cycle. When you have 2 or more Z energy, you can bottom 1 and draw 2 if all your energy is red, and your leader is red. So all of which are totally fine. I think Opposing Strength is technically going to be the most optimal. I think having to have 2 or more Z energy is just a little tall thing to ask, right? Because sometimes you're just going to be pushing and you're going to use your Z energy and you're not going to have it. But Opposing Strength is also a 15k as opposed to Dependable Warrior's 10k. So if you are playing like a red mirror match or something, being able to attack with your 15k super combos that went to your Z energy, your Explosive Dance, very good. Some old stuff. These cards do cost 3, so they go underneath the egg, so you can play each of them. I don't know how good they're going to be. For sure, you're going to play the Drum Reign of Terror. There is just simply no way that you wouldn't, right? It's a barrier blocker that gets minus 15, which is just like a better version of the current drum that we have, right? Like the current drum can potentially draw if removed by a skill, but chances are you're just trying to block with him, right? So producing a barrier blocker when you're already going to sit behind like Explosive Dance is going to be something very troublesome for your opponent, and he's super recurable in this deck. So I think this card is definitely going to be something to look out for. Potentially Tambourine could see play. We're not going to have the life face up, but there's a world where like you play a Unison and you tuck a card under it, right? So that could be the baby Unison, that could be a King Piccolo that you then, or the Piccolo Jr. and you're playing Symbols. I don't think that's going to work out most of the time, but at the very least, you could use these cards. I think for sure Drum is going to be played, and if you're trying to force it, you can use Tambourine. Finally, Attack of the Demon Clan is technically playable. It's just a pay 1 to play out any one of these three costs from your deck, and I think that's super solid because they'll just play themselves after the battle. These are the original kings. The Evil Dictator. This card is super strong. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to make it work, but I'd like to see it happen, right? I think it's a really cool card. Just paying 1, you get to like sack out 40k worth of cards on your board and then play it from your hand. It has a different removed effect to play a Piccolo Jr. with an energy cost of 4, but that's only from your life. And you gotta have it face up to show that it's a Piccolo Jr. So probably not gonna happen. But it is still a huge dual double 25k, so it's a really solid pressuring piece just to finish out a game. It's a 0-5, so it's not really super awful to include it, and it obviously does get support of all the cards that like it searches for 6 or lesses or whatever. King Piccolo, Time to Fight. This card though, this card is a real menace. Just evolve for a red over either of the 3 costs or cantrip if you really want to include those, and then when it's just added, you just add up. You just add one of the cards that you want. Any Demon Clan or Namekian 4 or less, add it to your hand. A red Unison of specified cost of 2 from your deck to your hand. Most of the time, this card says pay 1, evolve it, add a super combo to your hand, and that's crazy. Then, once per turn, when it's played or attacks, you just give a Demon Clan 20k. Just a plus power. Thankfully, none of these Demon Clans have like really great you know, attributes, this is where I think the Tambourine Dual Attacker is probably the best, right? Is that this could be like some larger combo where if a King Piccolo happened to live, you can evolve on top of it, grab a super combo, and then make your dual attack, or your dual attack Tambourine a big body. We'll see. It's definitely something to consider, but that card is very strong. And then these are just some dudes. This is the unison that we've been talking about the whole video. And then King Piccolo First Step to Revival. It's not that you would play or use this card in a combo. It's that when it's in your drop area, you can just get an extra 5k for the turn. So right, you could turn that Tambourine that we talked about into basically a 25 duel, which I think is a pretty big deal, just because then you're matching the super combos for most decks. It's good. It's like fine just because like, hey, you know, it's a searchable piece. Anytime you put it in the drop area, then you can just warp it and get an extra 5k. And that's probably really where I'd say the usefulness kind of ends. And then we have some old Shenron stuff. Are these good? Not really, but you know, the get that monster does just help you deck thin if you're looking to get through your Dragon Balls faster, because it's just activate battle, limit 1, boom, grab it. The other effect is not very useful because this deck doesn't play Desires, but you could. And then if you really want to turbo your Awaken, King Piccolo Evil Ambitions just lets you dump 3 Dragon Balls. Honestly, I could see this being played as like a 1 or a 2 of, just because it can activate stuff and then immediately put yourself into an Awakening position where you're now doing your effects for free rather than for 1. But I think stalling the game to kind of be in that mid-range, I think this is going to be a deck that plans to finish the game on its like 5 or 6 rather than like on its 3 or 4, the way that most red decks have been. So I think that's just something to consider. But that's really about it. I don't know if this deck can usurp the previous one. The previous one was literally best deck in the game for what, like 3 sets straight, right? It was kind of underneath the surface because we were in the middle of like a Dark Broly format, and then we had almost a tier 0 with like the King Vegeta deck that got banned before we really had a chance to push against it. This is really something that I think a lot of people have been looking forward to. Is it that great? Don't know yet. Paying 1 to activate your stuff is not great, but it does seem to draw a lot. And again, the pay 2 for the SR and to play the other guy is super solid. That's really all I've got for you guys today. I can't really make a joke about my last name because it's got a little bit of an implication.